Hi, everybody. This is Jim Cornette, pro wrestling legend, and you're listening to the Book in the Territory Unprofessional Wrestling Podcast.
This is the artist formerly known as Daryl Van Horn, James Mitchell, the Sinister Minister, and I'm here to let you know I would rather slam my cock in a car door than to miss the dulcet tones of Hard Body Harper, my illegitimate son, on Booking the Territory podcast.
Woo, Messi, this is professional wrestler Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man. Tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss Booking the Territory. Oh, yeah.
This is a one-man gang. You're listening to Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Booking the Territory, the Unprofessional Wrestling Podcast. For today, we are covering WCW Saturday Night on TBS from October the 17th, 1992. If you are listening to this on YouTube, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Post a comment or two about what you like or don't like about the show. It makes Harper very happy when you do that. Speaking of Harper, Harper is not here today. We had to shift some things around a bit, but he should be back next week. Here was the thing I said last week. Doc wouldn't be here. We'd get a fill-in. Well, Doc and I ended up shifting things around so it could be me and him, but Harper could not make it. All that said, big time shout out to Disrespectfully Classy, Marky Blassie, Mike Childry, Joe Eyes, good old Justin for your generous support on Patreon each and every month and basically being the sponsors of this show. It's about 48 hours since our last episode, so I don't have any new shout outs, but I do want to throw it to Doc to say, hey, how goes it? It's been fun the last 2 weeks. Crockett did a very good job, but how are you? Good to have you back in the saddle again. Yeah, back in the saddle again. Okay, go ahead.
Whoa. Well, I'm glad to be back. I do want to take a second. Just, I'm not going to name names, but just, I don't want them to get undue social media crap. But, you know, we have a JV Goon squad for a reason. And one of those reasons is so that the stars of the show can take a break every once in a while.
Can't give credit without an insult, you son of a bitch.
And I'm trying to take a little bit of time here to, you know, just do a few things. Nope. The Goon Squad is too busy gooning it up to be able to help. So I'm back. I don't mind being back. It was just, you know, busy lives. So anyway, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. I did watch the episodes a while back that I missed so that I'd be locked and loaded. I don't know that Harper will be here next week. We haven't talked about logistics, but in order to get him on Havoc, we may have to do this without him again next week. We'll talk about that offline. I have a couple of things I'd like to discuss though in the interim. Okay. You ready to get on the carousel? Okay, not sure what y'all talked about and what you didn't talk about. Did this group talk about Sting's last match?
We did. We got a listener question that we talked about on the show with Crockett, the first episode Crockett did. So we did briefly talk about it. I haven't seen it. Here's the thing. We don't watch AEW, right? So I only heard about it, and then I referenced John Pollock's take on it because he had I respect his opinion. I think he calls it down the middle like us in terms of wrestling. And he actually said that the Bucks were the perfect opponent. And in his description of how he described the finish and stuff, I agreed with him. Like, it sounded like they did the right thing by Sting. So we did talk about it, but in fairness, you know, to the AEW people that we seem to trigger out there, I don't know why, even though we say watch what you want to watch. If it makes you happy, I don't care. Crockett and I and Harper briefly did talk about it.
Okay.
But you had thoughts on it? You probably didn't see it either.
No, I didn't see it.
Harper said, "I got shit to do. I ain't spending $50 on a pay-per-view."
But again, we're gonna keep reiterating this until we're blue in the face. If you watch AEW and you enjoy watching it all that much, I will from time to time on TV. I just don't have a lot of time either. But yeah, I mean, if you like it, I'm not calling you stupid for liking it. I don't think you are stupid for liking it. I just don't want to watch it because I don't necessarily agree with everything they do. So
what you said right there was an insult to AEW fans. That's how they take it. And the reason I'm saying that, you should see my Twitter and the show Facebook page. The amount of just, you people should die. You are the worst scum of the earth because you don't praise it and don't watch it. I'm like, how did what Doc just say? If it makes you happy, watch it. All of a sudden, make you want us to die.
If we all went to eat a meal and we all didn't order what you wanted us to order or your favorites.
Dude, they are. I used to be like, oh, it's there's WWE tribalism too, but my God, just the blowback that you get for anything you say about AEW is ridiculous.
I don't get it, but we're the people who wanted to see all the wrestling on TV when we were kids, not just stars, all of it.
I say this, you are absolutely correct. And the last thing I'll say, because I don't know where you're going next, is I so much want AEW to succeed because I was in my mid-20s when ECW and WCW were gone. And all you had with this was this monopoly with WWF and their product tank. I don't want to say a tank because that's probably not fair, but their creativity and what made the whole boom during the Monday Night Wars just went inward. It just wasn't the same. And employees, wrestlers, no longer had any type of leverage. So like, I don't even get worked up when people say, oh my God, Tony's overpaying the talents that he brings in. I don't get worked up about that because in my eyes, I think it's strong and healthy for there to be multiple organizations that can afford talent so that people have a place to work, because there was a time when I'm going to call ECW the big three back then. I know some people would argue that, but when you had ECW and you had WWF and you had WCW, when all you had was WWF, because they bought WCW and ECW was done, it created way too much of a monopoly. And then you had just indie talent. You had talents out there that then had no chance to go anywhere because WWF went through that phase of 6'5", 235. If you ain't that, they ain't interested in you. And I don't think that's how it should be. Plus, again, all these wrestlers, there was no leverage. Like, it was one game in town, and if you didn't like it, go eat, raw potatoes on the indies, and that's it. And I want AEW to succeed. I want Impact to succeed because of that.
Yeah. So this is an interesting take for you that might surprise you. I thought Sting deserved it better.
I mean, he won. They won. Him and Darby won.
I know. And this is not pointed at the Young Bucks. It's pointed at everybody involved who's going through panes of glass.
Man, that's just, I saw that clip and I'm like, dude, this dude's gonna die, man.
Okay, so let me skip, because that's a point I was going to make, but you got there early and it's one I was going to make. You know how a couple of years ago we were talking, probably on air, about how sooner or later we're going to watch somebody die on an NFL game, and it's going to change how we think about the sport.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where we're at here.
I hope it don't happen, but oh my God, like only seen the clip. Oh.
Regardless of how I sound on the show, I do not tune in to professional wrestling to see somebody die in the ring. That's not the escape and entertainment I'm looking for. So when that happens, it's going to be real bad.
Don't say when, say if.
But I'm afraid we're getting closer to when. And here's the other thing, and here's why I thought Sting deserved better. Look, Sting made it this long. By all accounts, he's a great guy. I'm not a fan of the character of Sting, but this was more about Steve Borden's longevity in the sport. And so if we're going to do this and do it right, let's do it. What happens if Darby dies in the ring? What if he misses that jump and like snaps his spine? I mean, that's in itself horrible. I don't want to see anybody die. But is the risk of that so great that we risk messing up this guy that we care about so much as retirement and just completely sending him out on the wrong note?
In fairness, it's not just Darby that does crazy stuff, but in this example, we're talking
in this
about
example, and me saying, I think if we're honoring Sting, then we don't do things that could potentially draw away from Sting's big night.
I mean, I see both sides of it. Like, I'm not trying to defend what Darby did, but again, only saw the clip. But I see both sides of it. Like, I know someone who was there, who went to the show. And one, he told me the paper, he's not like this AEW nut either. Like, he's just a wrestling fan, right? He's like, honestly, Mike, the pay-per-view was really good overall. Like, he's like, I enjoyed it. He said, you know, for all the crap AEW gets, I enjoyed it. He just said, he was like, it was just one of those, and we've seen it in ECW. You and I were of age in ECW, mid-20s, when ECW was just popping off. Early to mid-20s, I should say. And I guess it kind of had that same vibe but we were younger than. There's this other part too. So you're right. Does that take away? Let me answer your question. Does that take away from Sting's last match? Man, that's all going to be on a person's perspective. Some people are going to say, hell no, it made it that much better. Other people are going to say, whatever, no, he shouldn't have did it. I, as a nearly 50-year-old person at this point, look at that and go, oh my God, that dude is going to die one of these days, taking one of these crazy, insane bumps. Like, I can't help but think that.
Can I ask you a quick question in that?
But ECW did some of the same dumb stuff. It just wasn't panes of glass all the time.
Yeah, my point is
coming off of balconies and go ahead.
Do you not think that you and I would watch Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka and Spike Dudley stuff in a whole different light now than we did then?
Absolutely, because we're older. We understand what happens to the. I mean, we knew what happened to the human over time. We weren't dumb then. It's just that life experiences go, oh damn, I'm almost 50. I wake up with back problems. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Like I have an elbow that doesn't function the way it needs to. Like there's so many things that you then wake up to in your late 40s and you're like, okay, that's I did that somehow when I was younger. So absolutely, it happens now. I watch old wrestling when people take hellacious bumps, or I see stiff chair shots, and I go, "Holy crap, my brain hurts looking at that."
We say that about Mick Foley.
Yeah,
just like, God, those guys. I wonder if they wish they had that back.
We say it all the time, so it's not an indictment on Darby Allin. No. It's more of.
My whole thing is
you get older.
We're out there to honor Sting, and obviously, I'm not even joking here. I'm not trying to make any jokes or be like, we're going to look at the episode later. I can do that then. I'm saying this: the promotion obviously loves Sting. It's reported that Tony said, "Hey, we're going to honor you the way that WWE didn't." Sting came in; he never put his shoulders on the mat for a loss. I don't even get mad about that. My point is that if we're going to go out and honor Sting, I'm not saying we all get down on the floor and Greco-Roman wrestle, but what happens if somebody gets seriously injured You go, oh, that could happen anywhere. That's true, but let's not increase the chances of that. And so it just seems unnecessary to what it's like when you got kids and you tell them to go brush their teeth and you find them off doing something else instead of brushing your teeth. You're like, why aren't you brushing your teeth? Well, I'm not doing that, but I'm folding your clothes. We can't leave the house till you brush your teeth. Yeah, you're trying to be the job that you were trying to do here. And I guess he was, and that's fine. I'm just saying.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it is subjective.
And I don't suspect anybody. I suspect, and all the people that are well-oiled machine for long enough that when I'm not running around every moment of every day, they're still there for me. Well, you hate them. I mean, that's why people send you messages.
Yeah, I think who don't understand, when you criticize something, it doesn't mean you hate something. It just means you're criticized upon that thing. Sting, it taken away from Sting's last match. Because again, I hearing from a friend that it was in the building, and I've heard from people who watched it on.
Unless I'm the one inhaling glass fibers into my lungs.
Yeah, that was wild, dude.
I'm saying, do we do things in that setting? Not all the matches, in that setting where we're trying to do one specific thing here that increase the odds that it's going to make it exponentially more difficult to do the one thing we set out to do because it's dangerous and somebody could get hurt. Do I think that they practiced it, they took all the safety precautions? 100%. Good job. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Bro, you can't practice that. It's just.
So I'm tired of that discussion. I have one that's even worse. I need to ask you a question.
All right. I'm going to put this up early for patrons because this was a good discussion. So
let me ask you a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a 5-star review a little bit ago. Did we read that on the air?
Yeah, that was a really good one. I read it on air a couple of weeks ago. That was a great 5-star review. And
that was a good one. And so let me just tell Nathan out there, we're not going to reread it again. But, someday, hopefully, you and I can get together and listen to some Soundgarden and pound some drinks.
Yeah, that was one of the best 5-star reviews. If you want your 5-star review read on air, just submit a Podcast Addict, Apple Podcast, and it will get read on air. The other thing, too, I think Doc mentioned earlier in the show, Halloween Havoc. Yes, it is coming up. It's I believe as of the recording as of the airing of October 17th, 1992, 8 days away or so, Halloween Havoc will be on Patreon, tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Best way to support the show is through Patreon. It helps put a little bit of funds into the show to pay these gimmicks that come in the mail. tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. The hosting service ain't free. None of that stuff is free. Software ain't free. So again, tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Support the show. Not only support the show, you get tons of extra content by doing so, which is the next pay-per-view of Halloween Havoc. All right, Doc, anything else? Because there's a lot has happened since you were out in terms of what's going on in WCW. And I know you watch the shows, but that you weren't on. However, I don't know if you know the extent of everything that's going down. So I kind of wanted to prime you as we jump into a new episode. Or before we jump into the new episode, I should say. All right, so you've been watching and you are quite aware that Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes defeated Gordy and Williams for the WCW and NWA World Tag Team titles. I asked you off air, do you know the particulars around that situation?
No.
All right, so in quick summary, their contractual agreements, and I went over this in detail on the show a few weeks ago. Their contractual agreements in Japan, along with WCW, weren't a fit, I guess is a good way to say it in short. Thus, Bill Watts took the belts off of them, put it on Barry and Dustin. Gordy is pretty much done. Dr. Death will be around through, I believe, Starrcade. And then he's going to be done. So Harper and Crockett and I had a discussion about how a failed angle it was bringing them in, putting them over so strong, and then, oh, we got a problem. We got to take the belts off of them and whatnot. So we kind of had a lengthy discussion about that aspect of, oh, crap. So that's one tag team that is now gone and done. All right. You're champs. Any thoughts on that?
WCW, everybody.
I just, and when we talked about it, I kind of was blaming Watts, but then I went back and looked. They came in, I believe, before Watts, so it's unfair to blame Bill Watts. We blame Bill Watts for a lot of stuff, but it's not really fair to put this on Bill Watts.
Okay.
That's one aspect of what's going on. The second thing, we talked about Scott Steiner last week, which Scott Steiner is going to appear on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because last week's episode was the first half of the October 5th taping. What we're about to discuss is the second half of the October 5th taping. So, according to the history of WWE.com website, prior to the taping, I told this to Crockett and Harper, prior to the taping on this day, WCW TV champion Scott Steiner had a backstage argument with Bill Watts, which ended up resulting in Steiner being taken off of all booking for the immediate future. Scott does end up doing some work in Japan a couple of times in November, and we're going to see footage of him on Saturday night like we see here. But he doesn't do any new WCW TV tapings or shows in the States. So he's basically done, although, again, we're talking about him tonight. Lots of tape footage. So I don't know the particulars of the argument. I've not done the research into the dirt sheets, and I don't know if I'd necessarily believe it all. But so in essentially back-to-back weeks, if you want to look at it like that, or in the span of a month, you lose your tag champions, WCW and NWA World Tag Champs, Gordy and Williams. And now you've essentially, again, not knowing what the argument was about. I assume when we had a discussion, it could have been about, taking pay cuts and whatnot, because these guys were being asked to take a lot of pay cuts. Now we're going to be losing the Steiners, and it leaves the tag division in chaos, essentially, because those are two ridiculously heavy hitting teams. So that's what's going on with Scott Steiner. Wow. And of course, Rick will be out. But so we're going to talk about Scott later in the show. He's in the main event, right? But that's
are huge holes now that have been punctured into the tag team division.
I mean, that old saying you used to say on this show, like throwing a tennis shoe down the hallway, that's
hollowed out, brother.
The tag division has been hollowed out with just those four guys.
There's still talent there, but come on, those teams are. And let's be clear, as we've mentioned, week after week after week after week, the Steiners are over.
They've been over since the day Rick's been there for a while, but the day they began tagging as a team, I don't ever remember saying, Scott Steiner he's got to get a little bit more seasoning. Like, that dude was great from the get-go.
Uh-huh.
The power moves, it's unreal when you go back and look at the minute those two got together. And they're brothers, so obviously they've got a lot of chemistry. But the minute they got together, how great they were. And I guess, who knows what the argument was about. I think Crockett said the rumor, obviously pay cuts or whatever. But long story short, I'm not mad at Scott Steiner. He basically looked the bully in the eye, and it sounds like he told him to go get bent and go F himself.
Well, and they'll be debuting in this tag team division in about 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So there will be more tape footage of him, I believe, that we'll end up seeing on the shows, including this one. But in terms of new tapings, no, nope, ain't happening. Bummer, right?
Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah. So
Hey,
let's
but
continue.
at least this makes Bill Watts more money.
Yeah, I just. By the way, Ben Martin tipped me off that Eric Watts is on Wolfie D's podcast, and I listened to it this week.
Okay.
No, it's not bad. It's not bad. He's a rambler, but like I don't want to say it changed my opinion on him, but that dude, and I've said this from the get-go, he was put in a no-win situation. I said this last week on the show. He's in a no-win situation, but we'll talk more about him because there was a promo last week where he just was so boring and just so nonchalant on Up Close and Personal with Tony Schiavone. But we'll dig into more promos with him as we go forward. But I'm gonna get the video version going here, Doc, as we talk about October 17th of 1992. This week's show, as I was saying a second ago, was taped October 5th of 92. Second half of the taping that day. Last week, Saturday night, was the first half of the taping. Tony Schiavone does voice over the intro, talks about what we'll see tonight. We'll get clarification on Barry and Dustin's problems, plus Douglas versus Pillman, and Eric Watts is here, and much more. This kind of goes along with what I was saying, Doc, as you see Dustin and Barry arguing in the very beginning of the show, how the tag team division is in chaos with a lot of guys leaving. Anyway, we go to a second part of the intro. JR says, Halloween Havoc is only 8 days away, and he doesn't say much as he sends us straight to the ring. And remember, you can get Halloween Havoc by going to tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. When I say you can get it, you can get the review that we will be doing of Halloween Havoc. Any thoughts on the opening, Doc, before we get into the first match, which is a fine athletic competition between Brian Pillman and Shane Douglas?
Just interesting to hear Schiavone's voice on there. That's all.
Yeah. You know, we're going to be winding down JR soon, too.
Yeah.
I mean, not tomorrow. We got a few more months, but it's coming. So anyway, we go to the first match. Pillman versus Douglas. And I'm sorry the video version is sticking right here, but it's catching up. Jim Ross builds, like as they get into the match, he really builds this up. He says promoters around the world are watching this. It's very important in terms of which one of these stars will win this thing. Like, you know, Jim Ross doing what he does best in terms of building up a match, making it seem like a big deal. And to be fair, Pillman is a big deal. And since bringing in Douglas, they have put him over and made him look like $1 million. So, you know, it's good stuff. Anyway, let me go to you. I did have several timestamps, but I want to throw to you if you got some initial thoughts on the opening of this thing.
Yeah, like think about it. 3.5 years after this, they're going to be challenging each other and cursing each other in ECW.
So true.
Which is good stuff too. You know, they've done a good job getting Douglas over, I think, here at the beginning. And so that this does have sort of a, I don't know, pay-per-view type quality, I guess, to it. I was wondering, should they come out and bury Johnny Ace and say how much better Douglas is now that he got rid of him?
It would have been funny. Selfishly, for us, I'd love to hear that on commentary. Like as we go back, like
I got rid of my prior baggage, a skateboard and 270 pounds.
Or go ahead. I'm sorry.
Who knew a skateboard weighed that much?
I was thinking more not Douglas burying him because he's a babyface, but more or less JR just going, yeah, he finally got rid of that worthless tag team partner he had. That's what I was thinking. Have JR say it that way.
For real.
You know, but that kind of puts heat on JR, but I don't know.
Well, they would have him and Ace would have heat later on. So these two have good chemistry. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to share the video version, I'm not seeing it, but that's okay.
I'm gonna put it on because it keeps freezing up on my end. But
that's fine.
Totally
I don't need it.
Let me share it with you. No, I'll share it with you because they just did a nice little sequence where they were they went for a drop kick and they both went for it at the same time. It was good stuff.
Yeah, they have great chemistry, good start, and then they get into working body parts.
Yeah.
I don't have timestamps, so you go.
All right. So trying to get to the 5:30 mark. There is a big chop by Pillman to Douglas in the corner coming up right here.
Yeah.
And the crowd or did it already happen?
Pillman will throw some chops.
Wow, what a chop.
I mean, crowd didn't lose it or anything, but he laid it in. And that was the other part of this match. You said it. They have chemistry. Everything looks great. Pillman's like, he's pulling the tights. It's no tight pull. It was really excellent. They just are so good in the ring together. And then they were working each other's arms. It was a legitimate wrestling match between two guys who really know what they're doing. And that looked a little weird, that drop down. But for the most part, I was impressed. And not that I didn't think I was going to be impressed, but these two, like, you could turn a match on like this and watch it and go, all right, this is wrestling. This is why I'm here.
100%. My exact note was similar. It said this was long, and nothing noteworthy necessarily happened for timestamps, but this was a really good meat and potatoes wrestling match.
Right here, Pillman drops Douglas to the corner. Another big chop. I mean, he was like, screw you, bruh. I mean, right in front of the fans. Look at the fans are like, holy shit. But that's the only timestamps I had. Anything else before I work towards the finish?
My note on the finish, as you describe it, is that I thought this was a cheap finish, but I'm not sure what a good finish would have been for these two guys on a Saturday night.
So it's I don't want to say complicated finish, but there's a lot that happens. So Douglas hits a suplex, then Pillman kicks out. There's a drop kick by Douglas, and then Pillman goes through the ropes. And then Douglas hits a dive over the top rope on the Pillman. Pillman recovers and sends Douglas into the ring post, and Nick Patrick calls for a DQ. So, because remember, in fairness, Watts said when you send a man into the ring post, it's an automatic DQ. I mean, he specifically said that. So at least there's continuity there.
I guess.
Yeah. Then after that, so it breaks down after that point. WCW officials have to separate the two on the floor, but Douglas gets up, and as Pillman runs back towards him, Douglas with a belly-to-belly on Pillman on the floor. We see the monster Grizzly Smith out there directing traffic, and I'm here to say F that guy for the millionth time, and I'll do it a million more times. We go to commercial, and then they replay it when we come back. I guess the goal here was, keep both guys strong. I'm not opposed to this finish, like a DQ like that.
Well,
I don't know if I want to see one of these guys.
I didn't like
take a pin,
but I don't know a better way to do it. So there you go.
I don't think you want to.
You don't want to pin either guy here.
No, I don't think it's worth it to pin either guy right here. It's just not the right thing to do.
But if Pillman and Austin are about to hook it up, maybe Austin runs in, but whatever.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. Even though they've tagged together at this point, they're not going to be officially like the Blondes for a few more months. So we're getting close, but it's not like going to be an official thing until a couple more months away.
All right.
So we go to commercial. We come back. Jim Ross throws to a video package of Eric Watts. We see clips of him as the QB from the University of Louisville. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again since you didn't hear it. He's a legitimate D1 athlete.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Is he a little doughy for a D1 quarterback?
You're looking at him here as a wrestler, and what I'll say to that is Tom Brady's combine picture is one of the most made fun of things I've ever seen in terms of this is an athlete, and look what his career ended up being. So I don't want to say that about him because he's still he's 6'6", dude. He's a big old dude. And I don't want to say he's doughy because the people, Brady is basically the GOAT to almost every football fan. And let's just say he is not a physical specimen.
Okay.
So I can't really say that
I think
about
that Eric,
him.
my whole thing is I think I'm looking at Eric Watts through the lens of what I think a D1 quarterback would look like in 2024, not in 1991.
Maybe so, but as I say that, he's still a D1 quarterback.
Speaking of that, what else I wanted to mention in the pre-dive thing was, did you get a kick this week out of Nick Saban going to testify that they ruined his college football and that's why he left?
Yeah, I read. I didn't see video of it, but I read an article about it. It's funny.
Right. Man, these guys all have build their thing and have all the advantages in the world and lean on people and use their power. And the minute an iota of it goes away, they start crying. Billionaire Ted's trying to put me out of business.
Yeah. Saban, that's a complicated topic because at the end of the day, these universities are making tons of money off these kids. And don't get me wrong, there is something to an education
I'm not
being paid for.
I'm not suggesting that the new doing it is the right way to do it, but if some of the money trickles over to the players, then that is an improvement over what has been doing.
I think there needs to be some guardrails. I don't know what those guardrails should be.
I don't either. I'm not smart enough to know about it, but I know that fool quit and then was in Congress testifying this week about how college football got ruined.
But see, here's the thing. I will never, and I take heat from my friends and family who are LSU fans. I love Nick Saban, and I know people, man, you have no clue how much people go, you trade. I'm like, no, I respect him as a coach, as a man. And here's the thing. He might be, in your eyes, in terms of that part, I don't want to say dirty, but he's got a weird take on things. But he ain't Urban Meyer.
I agree.
So,
but just because you ain't the devil doesn't mean you're an angel. My point is that if you were going to draw the prototypical college football coach of the 90s and 2000s, you would draw Nick Saban.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Urban Meyer's the supervillain, so we don't have to worry about that. Anyway. God. So, yeah, Eric's in a bad spot here. We're gonna bring that up later.
Yeah, Eric's in a bad spot. It's unfair.
I got more to say about that.
I do love the clips, though, and he talked about his D1 experience last week. I do love that they show him playing against the Ohio States of the world and whatnot. I mean, and I listened to Eric's the podcast he was on with Wolfie D, and he even said, he's like, you know, being a D1 athlete was easier than professional wrestling. He flat out says that. And I wasn't a D1 athlete, obviously. I'm not like Hopper, you know, for the Delgado Dolphins 5-star recruit, right? But that's a joke, people, for anybody out there that didn't get that. But at the same time, man, like that says a lot that a former starting QB for a D1 school would say that. I mean, that tells you how hard wrestling can be. Any other thoughts on Eric Watts as we get into the next match?
No, I'll have more later.
We get the Z-Man and Robbie Walker, who we talked last week, eventually will be Hard Work Bobby Walker. Right now he's Robbie Walker. Remember Hard Work Bobby Walker?
Man, I can't tell you why, but that feels racist. Like,
Hard Work Bobby Walker feels racist?
Yeah, he's just a good fellow. I mean, he speaks so well.
Oh, I see why you say that. Boy, don't ever tell my wife that. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, she's the sweetest person in the world, but she will look at you like, fuck, that's supposed to mean.
Right. What were you expecting?
I'm not supposed to speak proper since my skin is dark.
That's what I'm saying about this Hard Work Bobby. I mean, it's like a rib they're pulling. Like it's racist. I'm telling you, I gotta believe it is. But I was confused because I didn't know who this was. I was thinking that maybe this was a repackaged Ranger Ross or something. No.
That's Hard Work Bobby Walker.
Okay,
They're taking on, from the Monday Night Wars. He was on Nitro, doing jobs, and Saturday Night in that era doing jobs. They're taking on Jim Bryan and Fred Avery, who we've seen before. Two frumpy looking fellas, if I have to say so myself. They're very doughy.
Of course, yes.
Oh, you know what I wanted to tell you? Jeff Daniels was on last week's episode. Remember Jeff Daniels, Smoky
Oh
Mountain
yeah,
Wrestling?
he's the one that got his wig split from behind on in this high school gym by Kevin Sullivan's.
Yeah, we brought that up. I wanted to mention it. But
Brutal.
All right. Double drop kick is the finish by Z-Man and Walker, and then Walker then rolls up Bryan for the win, or Bryant for the win, Jim Bryant for the win, and that was it. Doc, any thoughts on this one?
Too long and too boring.
It was fine. The tag team division is in chaos. I don't know if they were thinking of, well, who are we going to put this Bobby Walker guy with? Maybe we can put him with Z-Man. Maybe we can put him with this guy. Maybe we can get a tag team out of this. Not going to happen. From there, we go to Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham, a promo. But first, Jim Ross throws to a replay of last week in what appeared to be the bad blood between these two when Dustin was tagging with Armstrong and Windham came out and they pushed and slapped each other. Very weird and rushed thing that we saw from them two. But from here, I do want to go to a promo of these two because Jim Ross is going to ask them what's going on. Here it is. If it'll play.
For itself, and it's self-explanatory, but I think you've got some explaining to do. First of all, where were you last week, and why were you guys fighting?
First of all, I don't have any explaining to do to you, Ross. And the second thing is that you can't make something out of nothing. Now, in every great team, in every sporting event, there's always controversy. Now, great champions are spawned by controversy. Now, when something bad happens, Dustin and I always make the best of it, and it's happened in the ring. We've always made the best of every situation. Now, we've got something right here that proves that we are the very best at what we do, and I think everybody here can attest to that.
That's right, Mr. Ross. Winning does mean everything to Barry and I. We have won the Unified World Tag Team titles. There is conflicts, like you said, in sports, football, whether it be wrestling, whether it be in some major corporation. But the problem we have, Mr. Ross, is not our problem at all. It's Terry Gordy's and Dr. Death Steve Williams' problem. And in Halloween Havoc, boys, Barry Windham and myself, both of us, the champions, are coming to get you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, apparently things are fine, or are they, in the camp of Windham and Rhodes? We'll be back after this.
So we made the argument last week that the tag division was in such chaos that Watts is calling audibles left and right throughout this era.
It sounds like it.
Because they're still talking about Gordy and Williams and, you know, Halloween Havoc and like I can't – it's so hard to comment on this promo because there's so much going on that doesn't make sense that just feels like the oddest promo of all time. After what we saw last week.
So here's the thing. We usually say this in a bad way. I'm going to say it uses this in a different meaning. What are we doing? Like, seriously, not like it's terrible. I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just like, I don't know what it is that we are attempting to achieve here, so I guess I'm going to wait because I'm not sure I know what to say.
That was kind of what I meant, like when I opened it up after the promo. How do you even comment on they won the belts out of nowhere because of Gordy and Williams not going to be here. Which, if you're watching it in real time in NE2, you don't know that. So it's like you could kind of suspend your disbelief and go with it a little bit. Then they have this disagreement, and Barry comes out, slaps Dustin. Now they cut a promo. They're friends. Everything's all right. And, you know, Gordy and Williams better watch their back at Halloween Havoc. When that doesn't happen, don't get me wrong, Dr. Death is involved in that match. It's just there's a replacement for Gordy since Gordy's going to be completely done and Dr. Death's still around. But that's the problem. I know what happens, so I don't know. I don't even know how to assess that other than this is weird and out of place. Fair enough?
Yeah, well, yeah, and my whole thing about it is, it's like, so We just won the titles, so we should be excited. And 2 weeks later, we're having problems, but nobody can exactly tell you what they are or why they're occurring. Okay.
I don't giving out. They're like transition tag champs is the best way to describe it. I think that's my assessment of it. They had to get the belts off of Gordy and Doc. So in order to do so, we put them on these guys who are starting to have, who we know we're not going to have them with the belts for long. So we're going to draw up some drama with them. When you know what's coming and you know like who ends up being the champs after them, it's very weird to look at it like this, but it boils down to the tag division is in chaos. They're hemorrhaging talent. This is what you end up with. This is a byproduct of, oh, damn, we're no longer going to have the Steiners and we're no longer going to have Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Gordy. Like, this is a byproduct of it. It's like,
Yeah, well, and you know what I'm going to say? This is a leadership problem.
I put it, I partly put it on Watts. The Gordy and Williams thing I don't put on Watts.
No,
the
because
Steiners,
they were never gonna stay like that. I get it.
Yeah. The Steiners, the argument that Scott had with Bill, totally leadership thing. Totally a leadership thing.
Okay. I agree.
All right. We go to the next.
But it feels like when I look at this episode, one of the things that I thought is that things aren't as buttoned down as they once were just a few weeks ago.
Totally agree.
Okay.
When you have poor leadership, that's what happens.
Oh, yes.
You could have all the talent in the world. When you have poor leadership and you have a tyrant, that is what happens.
Okay. I'm going to back up and let you have it, but I don't disagree.
The next match we go to is Rick Rude versus Tommy Angel. Rude's going to end up catching Angel with a rude awakening, and he wins, he being Rude. Any thoughts on this, Doc? It wasn't too long.
31-35.
I already know what you're going to. Is it that or this?
The woman back there in pink.
Okay, I thought you were going to talk about the two girls with the Ron Simmons shirt on.
No, those look like young girls, and I'm not here for that.
Agree.
So
this lady?
No. Yes. How many cigarettes does she smoke a day? I wish Harper was here, but
a carton.
Okay. That seemed fair.
Let me ask you a question, because I've never been a smoker outside of the occasional cigar, right? I'm not smoking. Never was my thing. Are there people who go through a carton a day?
No,
that seems impossible.
That's 10 packs.
Right. That's impossible, right?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I'm sure somebody's going to say, of course there's somebody.
Right. So realistically, even the worst smoker, how many packs would they go through a day?
3, 4, maybe.
God.
That's a lot.
Dude, because there's 20 in a pack, right?
Yeah.
So if you go through 3 packs, you had 60 lung darts in a day?
Right.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. All right. Yeah, she goes through 3 packs a day. That's what I'd safely say, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, so Rude's tights are really something in this match, aren't they not?
Oh yeah, they are colorful. They got sexiest man alive on them. They are. I'm always impressed by a lot of Rick Rude's tights.
Yeah,
he is a specimen, dude. He's
a force.
He is so great. Crockett talks about oftentimes. We always obviously praise the Dangerous Alliance. And when Crockett's on, he's like, dude, Rick Rude just does not get the credit from mainstream classic wrestling fans like he should. And I'm like, I agree, but I also kind of disagree sometimes, because I think when we talk about Rude, me, you, and Harper and him, we're like, oh my God, this dude is so damn good. He's great in the ring. And then on the mic, his promos, like he is top notch. And I think people don't give him the promo credit they should. That would be the one thing I'd say. But he's great. He never strikes out. It might be a single every now and then, and you might get a walk, but he ain't striking out.
Well, and like I said, his return and re-examining him makes me see that I always liked him, but good Lord, how much better he was than even I imagined. Did you notice here in this match that Tommy Angel eats a pile driver that does not get a 3 count?
I did. It was before the pin.
Yeah. He
literally eats the pile driver. And what's funny is when he eats it, if you watch, because I think I'll have it right here. I don't know if I went too far, but he eats the pile driver, and if you look, when he goes down and Rude goes to pin him, Rude tells him something like kick out. I was trying to like see what he said. I was trying to get to it. There's a Rude awakening. Maybe the pile driver was before it. But there it is. Watch when he pile drives him. Now watch when Rude leans over. He says something to him. Right there. He says something. And I was like, I think he just said kick out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So he's just following what Rude said.
Okay.
But Rude does end up catching him with the Rude awakening and wins 1, 2, 3, and that was it. All right. Any other thoughts on this Doc?
No, sir.
All right. So from there, we're going to go to a promo with Rick Rude, Medusa, and Bill Watts. Let's go to that right now. Here it is.
Very impressive victory via the Rude Awakening by the United States heavyweight champion, ravishing Rick Rude. But Cowboy Bill Watts, I understand you've got yet another announcement regarding Halloween Havoc.
To find out who my choice for the referee is, you're going to have to wait. Can't stand the suspense, can you?
That's right, Rick. Well, it's counting down to the Havoc, but as long as your referee who you pick is within the guidelines set out by WCW and Masahiro Chono's fits those same guidelines, I have no problem. No, I wanted to ask you one thing. Is Paulie Dangerously your manager? Are you a member of the Dangerous Alliance?
Yeah, you might say so. He takes care of some of my business. Lately, he's had his problems lately. It's kind of went his own way. And Ducey and I, well, we're Ducey and I.
But Paulie has been your business manager, is that correct?
He has been.
We have a contract here signed by Paulie Dangerously that says on Halloween Havoc in 1992, on October 25th, that you'll defend your United States heavyweight title.
That's fine. What's the problem? That's the way it should be, Watts. Belt against belt. His gold against my gold. I'm taking home all the treats.
No. We understand that you're already signed to wrestle Masahiro Chono for the NWA title. But this is for your U.S. title. It's an open contract, and you're going to defend the U.S. title on Halloween Havoc against Nikita Koloff. 1 fall, no disqualification, and one other thing. In the U.S. title match, Medusa is barred from ringside.
Let me see. I can't dangerously sign this.
You right there. And I want to say another thing. If you don't defend this title at Halloween Havoc, then you will not wrestle Masahiro Chono for the NWA Championship.
What are you talking? You can't railroad me like that. You can't make me wrestle 2 matches in one night. What are you trying to do? What is he trying to do to me?
I don't know. You saw the contract, fans. What a shocking development here at Halloween Havoc. We better take a break.
Boy, let me tell you something. Going back to the Mid-South days, Bill Watts loves bringing out the contracts. Loves it with a passion. He gets a hard on for, you signed the contract. We have a contractual agreement. He loves it. This, Doc, I don't know if you've ever seen it. This whole thing with Paulie, Rude, Medusa is going to lead to a monumental segment between Paulie and Medusa. And I listened probably 6 months ago to Medusa's take on it. I'm going to have to play the audio of what Medusa says about it, because For everybody who wants to defend Watts is something else. Based on what she says that Watts says about her and Paul Lee from that segment that eventually is going to take place. This is a fine segment. I got no problem with it. What did you think?
I just don't understand why we haven't heard more about this Dangerous Alliance problem and Paulie's issues until now. I also don't understand that the timing. I would have, something we're going to see later in this episode, I would have put earlier in the episode and changed how they did it to lead to this. Is this where Rude ends Nikita's career?
I think this is Nikita's last pay-per-view, so sure.
Yeah. And then for all the things that he's supposed to come in here and set straight, the longer Watts is here, the goofier this is all getting.
And by the way, when you say Rude ends Nikita's career, do you want to state what you really mean by that? You don't mean injure him, because he's not even going to, spoiler alert, he's not even going to wrestle Nikita at Halloween Havoc, just so we're clear.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, so I won't say anything else.
We're deep in my dark period here. So I literally didn't know that the Steiners were leaving. I didn't know the next guy was in. This is all like a special new ride for me, but the Watts fingerprints are not helping things. I'm telling you that right now, is that this show feels more disjointed and weird than when I left 2 weeks ago.
It's taken the whole tag division thing, and then what's happening here now. There's been no emphasis really on the Dangerous Alliance. I mean, but we're bringing this up now like we're supposed to. Oh, the Dangerous Alliance is still this great faction, but if you think about it, Arn and Bobby have been not buried, but they haven't been treated well on TV. It's not like they're doing anything. There's just disjointedness everywhere. And this is just another aspect of the disjointed stuff.
Right.
So, yeah. Rude is, again, spoiler alert, Nikita is winding down, but this is going to take some other turns is the best way I can say it without giving away too many spoilers.
And we'll just stay focused on making sure we cover the event.
There you go. Cover the event. Tony Atlas defeats Larry Santo in the next match. And that's all I had. It was a full Nelson, and Santo is out cold. Any thoughts on this one?
Okay, so Tony Atlas came in my absence.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a believable heel?
I think so.
Okay. Because other than feet, Atlas seems like a pretty likable, kind of easygoing fella in real life.
Yeah, Crockett and I were talking about that. Crockett worked many shows with him up in the Northeast.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know people who say bad things about Tony Atlas. I think he's a good dude.
I mean,
he's got a weird foot thing, as we've talked about on this show.
As we often say, do your thing. Live your life. If you're not hurting anybody, if that girl stepping on your face doesn't hurt her foot and she's into it, then okay.
Yeah. Have at it.
Sure. I mean, I don't want to do it, but if you like it, then that's okay. Are we bringing in guys here like Atlas because they'll work cheap?
I don't know. Crockett made the point of, it feels like he basically took Butch Reed's spot.
Okay.
Butch got fired, and Crockett was like, I fired a black guy. Let me bring in another black guy, according to Bill Watts' logic.
Yes.
I hate to say it like that, but unfortunately, I feel like that may have happened. Like in Watts' eyes, he was like, well, I lost a powerful black guy. Let me go find me another powerful black guy. It sounds icky just saying it.
Sure, but I mean...
But that's what it feels like when you watch it.
1992, that was... completely within the voice of the plausibility.
Bro, there is a show on WWE Network, WWE Legends, and there is a roundtable with Tony Atlas, Bill Watts, Jim Ross, Dusty Rhodes, and Teddy Long. I'm going to send you the name of it. You have got to watch this. Watts gives me the EBGBs with some of the stuff he says. He doesn't say anything derogatory, but he keeps using the statement, the blacks. He says that like repeatedly.
And here's the thing.
And I'm in it. Look, man, before anybody's out there, Mike, you said you never get offended. It don't offend me. What I'm saying is when I hear him say that, it just makes me go, I know where you're coming from, old man.
Right. It's one of those things that if you just read without any connotation behind it, it's technically not a bad thing. But you and I both know that's not how that was intended. It's like you got to be careful in how you use the word the Jews.
That's what I'm saying.
Like you can use that in a very normal sense, or you can turn into Harper. Well,
you can't say that about Harper. Harper doesn't say that in a derogatory manner.
I know, but it's fun to pick.
But if you clipped Harper saying that, it would sound terrible,
awful.
Yeah,
we play a lot of youth soccer around our friends with our friends to the south, and we say the Mexicans a lot because the Mexican style of soccer is different than European or a lot of pink necks in a good way. But you gotta be careful how you say those things, bro.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it can be taken out of context. Like,
sure,
I think you always got to remember one thing. Like when people use words in a weird way, it's one thing you can never know is somebody's. Like when they say things, you never know their intent. Like intent means a lot. The problem is intent is a subjective thing. Like I can think you intended something to come out a certain way, and I can give you the benefit of the doubt and go, oh, you didn't mean anything. I can't give Bill Watts that benefit of the doubt. I just can't.
I got you.
But you gotta, it's an interesting roundtable because Atlas and Teddy Long have a discussion about Thunderbolt Patterson, who just got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
He's going to move right on in.
And Teddy talks about a story with Ole and Thunderbolt where Teddy, and I'm paraphrasing here, you got to go watch it yourself, mentions that he's basically saying Ole was racist, and he almost says Thunderbolt was just as racist. It is a phenomenal hour and something. I'm gonna find the name of it and send it to you because I was watching it going, oh my God. And it's like 10 years old or older. I think they did it in like 08 or 09. So it's not new. Dusty's in it, but it is a very interesting conversation between those guys. And Tony Atlas's take was, he says it a couple of times. He's like, I didn't deal with racism in wrestling. He flat out says he never dealt with it. Where Teddy Long's take was, oh, I dealt with a lot of racism. So it's a very interesting discussion to listen to these guys have it. But then Bill Watts is, bro, you got to hear this man say what he says. And then when you know his history, you're like, bro, I can't take you serious, man. That's the problem I have with Bill Watts. Like when I try to be fair, like the whole Ron Simmons thing, when he puts Ron over for the title, I thought it was great. But then I know Bill Watts' heart ain't pure. He didn't do that for charity purposes.
But who's this?
That's true too. That's true. Anyway, I went on a tangent, but I'll find out the name of it. I'll send it to you because maybe one of these days at soccer, if you have time and you're sitting in your car, and you can watch it because it's pretty damn good. It's pretty good. Okay. And it is on Peacock. All right, let's continue. From there, we go to the Halloween Havoc Control Center with Jim Ross. Let me hit play here. I'm going to play this first part of it. Here it is.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Halloween Havoc Control Center. Today, we'll tell you the entire lineup for the big event coming your way next weekend. Next Sunday, October 25th, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, exclusively on pay-per-view from Philadelphia. Also, in this Halloween Havoc Control Center, we'll ask Sting if he's got any second thoughts. We'll talk to Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes, and I'll ask them why they were fighting on WCW Saturday Night last week. And we'll look at the new controversy surrounding the United States Heavyweight Champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. As we mentioned, last week on WCW Saturday Night, Sting and Jake Roberts signed liability waivers. We asked Sting earlier if he had any second thoughts.
Mistake you just made, Sting.
I have absolutely no problem signing a waiver like this. I have absolutely no problem with jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, just knowing that there'd be a chance I could land on top of Jake the Snake Roberts. So no problem at all on my part.
Well, Sting is very upbeat about what could be the last match of his career. We're being joined now by Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes. They'll take on Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy at Halloween Havoc in a big rematch for the unified titles. But my question, gentlemen, why were you fighting each other last week on television?
Well, just a second, Dustin. Ross, first of all, it's like this. Now, we don't answer every question that we get asked about our personal life. It seems like the media wants to get into everyone's personal life every chance that they get. We've got the biggest match of our careers coming up here very soon at Halloween Havoc, and I can tell you this, Dustin and I are going to win this match. We'll be the champs.
Well, fans, I'll assure you, if they haven't solved their internal problems by Halloween Havoc, they'll find themselves the ex-champions when they face Williams and Gordy.
I had to play that. Doc. That line from Barry is like so 2024. The media always wants to get in someone's personal life every chance they get.
Well, but here's the other thing. When you think about how bad things are today, just remember that was a problem and a theme back then. And so some of this is we're just older and now we're living it at this time. But some of these problems are just human problems.
And it's been put on steroids by social media. That's the thing.
1,000%, because everybody thinks they got the answer or they want to come in and pile in on things. And that's,
yeah.
The better version is to go sit in the corner by yourself and enjoy the quiet.
Totally agree.
Totally.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Halloween Havoc Control Center?
I'm worried about this pay-per-view, if we're going to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of shifting. Look, they're still promoting right there. Windham and, against Gordy and Williams. It's something.
Yeah.
It's something. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say about it at this point. From there, we do go to a promo of Ron Simmons. And, man, I'm not going to play it unless you had something from it.
No, he didn't say anything of consequence, but he heads over to the color commentary for the next match.
Watching the visual on Patreon right now, tinyurl.com/Patreon BTT. What I love about it, give Bill Watts credit, because I think this is something, he did. Ron looks every part of being a world heavyweight champion. He's a big, tough dude, but man, I love they present him kind of like Flair with the suits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love it because this reminds me of something I think WWE was trying to do with the Hurt Business years ago that they broke up way too soon.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Like, he is a legitimate world champion. We're not going to treat him any different than we would if Ric Flair was. And this is how it should be. Like, Ric Flair is a champion. Come out there in the suit. Tully Blanchard would have the suit on as well sometimes. So, like, I just like the presentation, and I've said it before about Ron looking the part. Kind of like Nick Aldis was doing it too when he was NWA champion a few years ago. Comes out there, he dresses like a world champion. And I think that's not that you can't dress, not that when Dusty was world champion and coming out there not being dressed, to the T, but I just think that it makes it so much better for Ron when you present him that way. So I thought that was excellent. I loved it. From there, we go to Eric Watts versus Mike Thor. Doc, I got nothing against Eric Watts. I actually like him. I like him more now than ever, to be honest with you. But he's got a long way to go. And that's all I can say about him versus Mike Thor here. Your thoughts?
Daddy said sail.
You know what sucks about this? I alluded to it last week. Imagine the boys in the back.
Oh,
And
back
that's
then, in that locker room, Rick Rude, Arn, Barry, there's a veteran presence.
I think Rude wasn't nice to him at all. But when you hear Eric talk about it, he didn't call, at least in a recent interview I heard, he didn't call anyone else out, but it sounded like Rick Rude was a prick, and that doesn't shock me.
Right. So my question is, why wouldn't Bill get his son in a gym? I don't
think he looks bad, dude.
He doesn't, but he's doughy, and that's the thing. Is like, now, Eric, they're going to be tough on you in the locker room. Even I can't protect you all the time, so you might want to look like a star. Here's what I noticed during that match, because this is my first time to see him.
Right.
He doesn't look like he wants to be there.
Yeah, his mannerisms. He's not there yet in terms of mannerisms.
I don't say that I don't say that as a slob on him. He may not. He's like, okay, you're doing this now. Wait, Daddy, I don't want to do that. Get in the ring, son.
I don't think that was it. But go ahead.
Okay. The other thing I was
go
going to say is he's like Z-Man without the muscles.
I just think he's a dude who has trained for a little while, had a few matches. I just think he's not ready.
Well, and here's the thing. We've traded the Steiners and Gordian Williams for Tony Atlas and Eric Watts. So we're not trying. I feel like I'm watching the Cowboys here.
He's just not ready, man. He does not. This was too much, too soon. And the problem is everyone knows he's Bill Watts' son. So that makes it even worse.
Yes.
Dude, if they sent somebody out there who wasn't Bill Watts' son, Joe Schmo from Jiffy Lube, Georgia, right?
Yes.
And they did the same thing with him that they're doing with Watts, we'd be the same way. We'd be like, who is this bum? I mean, think about how we talk about Z-Man. Like, we're always on Z-Man. And about being non-charismatic, just stale toast. This is no different, except it's worse because he's Daddy's little boy. And it's very unfortunate for him.
True.
All right.
I agree.
We'll keep going.
I agree. Okay.
So I'm not going to play the audio from this, but this is great. This is another segment with Cactus Jack and Barbarian training, because Barbarian is going to be going for the title at the next pay-per-view. And these segments have been really good, but they, instead of training in the ring right now, they break a couple of cinder blocks on Barbarian's back. Then they break a 2x4 on his back, and then Barbarian destroys a pumpkin with Ron Simmons' name on it. The promo is fine, I guess, but the visual more than anything is kind of what sells it. This kind of had a little bit of a Smoky Mountain wrestling feel to me of it. But what were your thoughts on this, Doc?
This shit is goofy as all hell. And it's what makes wrestling awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it.
We continue with Barbarian now, and if it sounds disjointed on the audio and the video version, it's because we've taken multiple poop breaks, or someone has in this show. Barbarian destroys a pumpkin. Any other thoughts on this, Doc, as we continue?
It's the kind of stuff that we need more of in today's wrestling, yesterday's wrestling, present wrestling, all of it.
Totally agree. From there, I've got to play this next segment because to me, it's just gold. This is Paulie Dangerously. And he's sitting down up and close and personal with Tony Schiavone. Do you want to say anything about this before I continue?
Paul just looks thin and tan and everything he's not today. Roll tape.
Let's go to Paul Lee and Tony Schiavone.
Week is Paulie Dangerously, the CEO of the Dangerous Alliance. And, say what you want to about Paulie, and many people have, in World Championship Wrestling. You cannot deny that this man is maybe the most successful manager the sport has ever seen. Let me use an old cliche, Paul. You're very conspicuous by your absence. You haven't been around. Where have you been? And more importantly, what's become of the Dangerous Alliance?
Conspicuous by my absence. Just because Ted Turner doesn't go to every single one of the Atlanta Braves game, he's still the boss, and I'm still the boss of the Dangerous Alliance. I'm the CEO, I'm the money, hey, the hell with it. I am the Dangerous Alliance. And you can go ask Steve Austin that. You can ask that of the enforcer, Arn Anderson. You can ask that of Bobby Eaton, because no matter what anybody thinks, I still own options on all their contracts. And just because I choose to exercise those options while I'm scouting for new members to our organization, while I'm in New York, while I'm in Europe, where I've been twice, while I'm in Japan, where I've been once, while I'm anywhere in this country, I still have the options on the contracts of stunning Steve Austin, Double A Arn Anderson, and beautiful Bobby Eaton.
And no doubt about it, options on the contract of U.S. heavyweight champion Ravishing Rick Rude. 1 year ago, Halloween Havoc, you unveiled Ravishing Rick Rude as a charter member of the Dangerous Alliance. And now we come around to Halloween Havoc again. And just recently, the contract was presented for the U.S. heavyweight title, open contract with your name signed, and now Ravishing Rick Rude must defend the U.S. heavyweight title at Halloween Havoc, plus he has the match with Chono. Paulie, my question is, point blank, what were you thinking of when you signed this open contract?
I was thinking that Ravishing Rick Rude is the greatest United States heavyweight champion of all time, and I don't see why he wouldn't want to defend his title at Halloween Havoc. I get a share of Ravishing Rick Rude's earnings, and I know that he's the type of athlete that can defeat not only Nikita Koloff, but also go on to win the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship at Halloween Havoc against Chono, and I have no doubt in my mind that Ravishing Rick Rude can accomplish that task. That's all. Nothing else.
Okay, well... fair enough, but he has 2 matches he has to wrestle, and in the contract as well, you have the stipulation where Medusa is barred from ringside. My question to you is, why was that stipulation put in? Is it maybe so that you can be at ringside with Rude in this title defense?
What are you trying to stir up?
I'm not trying to stir up anything.
Just because Medusa wants to run around and think that she's the reason that Ravishing Rick Rude is still the United States heavyweight champion, why Ravishing Rick Rude has rematch against Chono, doesn't mean that I'm not still the boss, okay? Medusa is not the reason for Rick Rude's success. I am. And even if I wasn't there, Rude would still be the U.S. heavyweight champion. Just because Medusa doesn't have the confidence in Rick Rude that if she's not at ringside, he can't win a match. I have that kind of faith in Rude. He doesn't need Medusa. He doesn't need me. He could win any match that he wants against Chono, against Koloff, against any damn person in WCW without me or Medusa at ringside. She wants to run around thinking that she's the reason for his success. She's dead wrong. He doesn't need her. He doesn't need me. She doesn't have that kind of confidence in him. I do.
Okay, well, I'm glad you have that confidence in Ravishing Rick Rude, and we just found out today that Rude has called for a meeting. He wants to face you one-on-one, wants to talk to you about this open contract that you signed. So with all this confidence in Ravishing Rick Rude, during this meeting, what would you say to him?
Where'd you hear that?
That's what I've heard. I mean,
from who? Because I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard? Of course you've heard that. You haven't heard that he wants to have a meeting with you one-on-one?
No, I haven't.
So what would you say to him in this meeting about the U.S. title open contract?
I'd probably say, hi, Rick, how you've been doing? I've been busy investing our money across the world. Why you ask me these kind of questions?
Well, it's my job as a
reporter. That's not your job. Your job is to tell me what you're going to ask me beforehand. You told me you're going to ask me about Bobby Arn and Steve. You told me you're going to ask me a question about the U.S. title. You didn't say anything about Medusa. You didn't say anything about this whole situation with Rick Rude. I don't know anything about a meeting, Tony. You want to bust somebody's chops. Why don't you go bust Medusa's chops? Why don't you go ask Ravishing Rick Rude some questions and put a camera in front of his face? Don't bust my chops, Shivani. I am the CEO of the Dangerous Alliance. I don't need this kind of crap from you. You understand me? Don't get in my face. This interview's over. Shut off the camera.
Obviously, that's going to be a very hot meeting, and what's going to be even hotter is Halloween Havoc, only on pay-per-view.
Paulie is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And I like Tony because Tony doesn't get flustered at all. He's just like, well, whatever.
I mean... you know how we were talking about everything's being like chaotic and whatnot?
Yeah.
With the Dangerous Alliance, they haven't brought it up, and he's still the manager. He explains why he's still the manager.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that should have been done differently and before the Watson, the Rude announcement with different content, and I think that would have been great.
Yeah. I just think this is Paulie doing a really good job of making a chaotic situation in WCW with Watts' leadership.
Let's get rid
halfway
of him
makes
because we don't
sense.
like him.
I love this. I loved it. I thought this was great. I thought Tony's questions were great. I thought Paul's responses were great. They plant the seeds of mistrust and problems with Medusa and Paul E here. This was really great.
And I really like Shivani's style in these because he's very laid back, and he, Paul Lee's accusing him of stuff, and Shivani just looks like a normal dude that's just asking some reasonable questions.
Paulie's acting too is spot on, and what I'll say about that is it's the same dude today on SmackDown and on WWE. The facial expressions, you see it back in '92. Let's continue. Go ahead.
Does this goof in the middle look like a young Oliver Humperdinck?
Sometimes his hair, he reminds me of this goof. What goof are you talking about? Tell the people that aren't watching the video.
I don't want to. You tell me who that is.
He's talking about DDP. No other thoughts on Paul Lee's segment because I thought that was phenomenal.
It was good. Yeah. Let's
continue. More to come between Paul Lee, Medusa, Dangerous Alliance, Rick Rude. It's all going to play out in the months to come. It's going to be really good TV is the last thing I'll say, even though Bill Watts hates it, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. From here, we go to DDP and Vinny Vegas. These two are hilarious. I think DDP sometimes looks like Kenny Omega's grandpa, but that's just me, with the hair, the frizzy hair and whatnot, and the crazy outfits. I'm going to play it. It's not long. Here it is.
One to WCW Saturday Night in just a few moments. We'll go back to the ring to see Big Benny Vegas take on Marcus Alexander Bagwell this past Sunday in the main event. You didn't really put the rookie away, did you?
Wait a minute, JR. I proved to the world that Diamond Dallas Page is truly the rookie of the year last week on the main event. I only needed 5 more minutes with him. Vin Man, he came out here and asked Bagwell for 5 more minutes, but the chicken kept walking. Well, tomorrow night on the main event, Bagwell, you got a big problem because we're going 15 minutes. Not that I'm going to need them, but tonight, homeboy, you got the biggest problem of your life. 6'10", 305 pounds, my main man, the Vin Man.
Let me tell you something, Bagwell. You showed me no respect when I called you back to the ring. Tonight, right here on national TV, I'm going to show you no respect.
Hey, Vin Man, heads you win, tails, Bagwell, you lose.
All right, fans, we'll go back to the ring in a moment, but now let's take a look at the Halloween Havoc lineup.
He kills me when he calls him Vin Man. That's the second or third time I've heard him say that. I think it's hilarious. Any thoughts on these two?
Terrible.
No, it's not.
Terrible.
No, it's not. At least there's continuity.
I guess, but it's terrible.
All right. Well, from there, we go to Bagwell versus Vinny Vegas. It ain't a long match, but what do you have from it?
Ugh. There is a part in here where Nash hits Bagwell with the short arm clothesline and bust his nose open, and it looked real good. So I'm glad it looked good if he's going to hit him for real. But overall, this didn't do much for me.
I'll go to the finish. I was wondering where it happened, and I never caught. I knew his nose was bloody, but I never caught the lariat.
104.10.
104.10 is about where it happens? Because I kept looking back. I was like, when does he catch him? So we're at 103.55, so he hadn't caught him. See, he's already reaching for his nose right there. That's why I was like, when did he catch him? See, his nose, I think he caught him before that.
Okay.
You think he catches him here, but I thought it happened before that because he was already reaching for his nose. Maybe that one just knocked the blood out a little bit more, but
Loosened
the finish, the flow, yeah. The finish is a sleeper on Bagwell, but Bagwell gets out with a jawbreaker. There's a lariat by Bagwell. Bagwell is rolling, and he hits Vegas with a back elbow. Bagwell is then going to hit a crossbody on Vinny Vegas from the top. DDP gets on the apron. Bagwell hits DDP with a drop kick because he's distracted by him. And as soon as Bagwell turns around, Vegas hits Bagwell with a big shoulder tackle, and Vinny Vegas, a.k.a. Nash, is going to win by pin. It wasn't bad. But it's like a typical 4-minute TV match. I mean, I don't know what else you're going to get from this, you know?
I was fine when it ended.
You were? Yeah, I hear you. All right, we then go to Jim Ross, who throws to footage from WCW Worldwide with a promo from Pillman, Austin, and Scott Steiner. So, this is it. We're not going to see much more Steiner other than this week. Did you have thoughts on this?
Why did Arn come out to help in that match that we see? Why would Scott Steiner slam Bagwell? This makes Scott look like he's turning heel. They're arguing over money. Is putting the TV title on him a way to try to calm him down so that he'll resign? Those are my notes.
I'd need to look when this actually was taped. Because I can look real quick if you'd like me to.
Nah, I don't really care. My point is that it's like, why are we putting the title on somebody who's about to scram?
Well, maybe you don't know at that moment he's about to scram, and this is probably.
But if you're a leader of everything, and you're the old school way that things ought to be done, and there's right and wrong, and there's all these things, wouldn't you have a clue on that shit?
No, because Bill Watts' head is so far up his ass because he's a tyrant that he's clueless on things like that.
So you're suggesting that the reputation may be somewhat of a mirage, a fugazi, if you will.
It's not even a reputation. Dude, when you have an ego like Bill Watts, you think you're smarter than you are. And no one can tell you otherwise. And that's a factual piece of information that happens.
100%.
But yeah, it makes basically with this tag match, it started with a promo with Pillman, Austin, and Steiner. And then we go to a match with Pillman and Austin versus Steiner and Bagwell. And during the match, Arn came out and sends Bagwell into a post, and Steiner didn't see it. So he doesn't know Bagwell was attacked. So he thinks Bagwell kind of bailed on him. So he bails on Bagwell.
Uh-huh.
Bagwell finally gets on the apron, and Scott, again, doesn't realize what happened. And Scott's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm getting out of here. You go ahead and wrestle Austin and Pillman on your own. It's just odd.
It's flimsy.
It was like wet cardboard. It's like, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
That stuff works.
Hey,
cardboard works as a box to hold stuff when it ain't soaking wet.
We had all these guys involved just a couple of months ago, and we were like, this is great. So what's changed?
The tyrant is taking over. We're a few months in now to his reign. So after that match where Steiner bails on Bagwell, we go to Scott Steiner from Worldwide, cutting a very quick promo, and then he's taking on Steamboat in a match. And then Scott doesn't talk about the Bagwell situation in that promo for one. He just says, let's talk about my match with Steamboat, and then we go to it. So we go to this match with him and Steamboat, and before I cover the finish of it, Doc, do you have anything from this match?
No.
So Scott is on the outside. I'm sorry, Steamboat's on the outside of the ring. Scott brings him in. He just rolls Steamboat up. And Scott Steiner, remember, Steamboat's the TV champ right now. Scott Steiner, who on October 5th had an argument with Watts and is gone, basically. Well, I'm sorry. Originally, it was he was going to be off of TV indefinitely and taken off the booking sheets, right? So I guess they didn't realize he was gone at this point. He's now your TV champion because he rolls up Steamboat and wins the TV title. But on October 5th, 12 days before this aired, and I get it, this was produced probably after they had the argument, right? I don't know. Scott Steiner is your world TV champion, but he's pretty much done with the company. Just
makes perfect sense.
This whole ending, the last 30 minutes of the show is crap because Scott Steiner's involved in all of it with the tag match with Bagwell, then the match with Steamboat. And when I'm quickly summarizing this, here's the thing. They're showing like 45 seconds of these matches. So it's not like you can really comment on anything else that happened.
Yeah. And you're right. It's just a bunch of
gaga.
Yeah.
But we're not done with Scott Steiner.
No.
We're not done yet. First, we get a replay of Watts telling Rude about his match at Havoc, because I guess we're trying to stretch things out, and we're running out of time. Then we go to what I think is Scott Steiner's, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth because maybe something else will show, but I don't think so. Scott Steiner's last Saturday Night TV match. He is the world television champion. By the way, I think Rick is hurt right here, so it would make sense for Scott to have some singles run in him.
Sure, that's fine.
Scott is the world TV champion. He's going to take on Steve Austin. Doc, thoughts on this? They started with maybe 10 minutes of TV time left. Thoughts on this?
First question. I think we've talked about this before, but I want to check it. Do you think if Stone Cold had a redo that he would be putting on some elbow pads and some knee pads right here?
He's going to be wearing knee pads soon.
Okay.
But probably so.
Okay.
You know, that might be one of them old things with them old timers like, brother, you're tough. You're going to put those pads on. You're going to go out there with no knee pads on, brother. Kind of like Iceman King Parsons telling me, don't put your hand up, brother. Take that chest shot. Yeah, okay. Now my brain is fried and I stutter sometimes. Them old timers will tell you. Right, but brother, I don't wear no rubbers. Okay, Ice.
Just full of wonderful advice for today's young gentlemen.
Right.
Maybe, and I don't know here, I'm just spitballing, maybe don't listen to pro wrestlers for your major life decisions.
Someone like Mick Foley, yes, but
I don't know. He scrambled too.
Well, the list is short of pro wrestlers I'm taking life advice
100%. Okay, so this was for some reason I expected this to be better than it was, and it wasn't terrible because these two guys in here are really good. I just expected it to be better, but given the last, like you said, 30 minutes, I don't know why I expected that. One thing that I thought it needed was I thought these guys needed a little bit more time.
Yeah, maybe chop off some of that gaga with Steiner and whatever that was that made no sense and just throw this match out there and give them time. But you never know, man. I don't know. The politics backstage of this too is what the hell, you know?
Right. I get it.
Because remember, this is the same tape and him and Watts have the argument at.
Okay.
Like, so, you know, at what point, this is like prior to the taping, according to the records, Scott had the argument backstage with Bill prior to this match being taped. So well, I'm like,
that may have some explanation why the match isn't that great.
Yeah. So it's like, you got to keep that part in mind too.
Okay, that's good.
He went out there and worked this.
Way to keep us on the facts there, buddy. That was good.
Now that explains maybe why they worked the mat for a long time.
Yes.
Because they are laying on the mat and not doing nothing, but they are laying on the mat. And Scott is tying up Austin a little. And JR even says, Steiner is ahead on points right now with him doing so much amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we like. Even JR may be in on the fact that all right, Scott's pissed. He's just going to go out there and lay on the mat.
Okay. That's why we're the best in the business.
Something like that.
Nobody else can talk about eating ass and then give you a real reason why something is going wrong in the ring. No one.
You want me to go to the finish?
Is there one?
Well, what can be constituted as one? So
Okay.
we get a false finish by Scott. They are moving slow as TV time is coming to a close. Slow. JR says, we will report on this tomorrow on the main event. Austin has
I don't
Steiner.
watch the main event. I need to know now.
Austin has Steiner grounded as we go off air, and that is the finish.
Jeez.
Disjointed episode is the best way to describe this.
Our dear leader is running this shit into the ground.
Yep. Pretty much. And I got
That's
nothing
my
else.
assessment.
And I got nothing else as we go to wrap this episode up. How's that sound?
I think we're putting as much ending to our review of this episode as they put into booking it and executing it. So it sounds right to me.
So before we do so, remember, the only way to listen to our Halloween Havoc pay-per-view review is by going to tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Not only will you get that, you'll get all of our WCW pay-per-views through 92 that are available on Patreon, plus all of the Clash of the Champions, which we've done over 20 by now. tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT, all available there. 400 plus Patreon exclusive shows, including the video versions of these episodes, along with, additionally, the NWA Power shows with Sparks and the Little Fella Half Pint, and the ECW shows with Mike Prue, NJV, and Rick Beebe. All of the members of the JV Goon Squad are there. Crockett and I are going to be doing Beach Brawl soon, or Beach Blast. I can't remember what the hell the name of the pay-per-view was that Herb Abrams did with the UWF, but we will be doing that one soon on Patreon as well, because when we revisited the Herb Abrams Dark Side of the Ring several weeks back, a month or two ago, we had such a great time. We were like, we got to review that shit show of a pay-per-view. So that'll be available on Patreon soon, along with Halloween Havoc 92. tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Greatly appreciate the support. It keeps the lights on. It keeps the show going, because this show would have ended a long time ago if not for that. Doc, this is a weird episode. How are you going to rate this thing?
It's hard because it's not without some good stuff.
Yep.
But it does beg the question of what are we doing? That's never a good question to have to ask. Oh, let's see. Carry the 1, -3, +2. I'm going to say B-.
Man, you're being kind. I'm going to say C+.
I am known for my kindness.
Not really, but you are a curmudgeon most times. I'm going to say C+, and the only reason it's going to get a C+ is because of Paul E. There is way too much disjointedness going on in this promotion at this point. There is way too much
for no good reason
and BS for no good reason. So I'm going C+.
Other than that, the boss man has to flex.
Man.
And if that's the reason that we're doing anything in your shoot job or your day-to-day, whatever it is, or your wrestling promotion, you can rest assured that things aren't on an upward swing.
Yeah. It's disjointed. It's when you said a second ago, you don't know what they're doing, I'm going to tell you again. I'm going to use this football term. They're calling audibles. Non-stop audibles.
And when everything's an audible, you don't have a plan. You're just at panic.
That's right. When it's like the example you said when Peyton Manning was at the line of scrimmage as a rookie in the NFL, and everything's there. The skills, we don't know it at the time, but he's got all the ability and skills, but he's just seeing chaos in front of him and trying to adjust that and process it all. It's just scrambled eggs at that point. Too much. So then I just said it. I'm giving I know you usually go first, but I just said Paul Lee. I mean, Paul Lee is going to get my Toot Toot Award. Who gets your Toot Toot Award?
I'm going to go with Pillman and Douglas because I really liked what they did.
All right. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a reverse Toot Toot Award to someone?
Oh.
Because that'll be Bill Watts, if we're being real here.
Yeah, Watts is getting that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's easy. The other thing I wanted to mention while you were talking about patron stuff, and it's another thing that you and I have been discussing, so I'd put out there. I got to get one of those gimmicks where you get to preview something for like a week or so, but I'm waiting. Dark Side of the Ring is back, and so
Yes.
I don't have Vice anymore. I need to order it, but I'm waiting until I can get the thing where I can get them all and we can get them watched. And then, so I would imagine that at some point in the next some amount of time, you and I will do something with Dark Side of the Ring, to be determined. But I mean, we usually do. So
yeah, I'm right there with you. As of us recording this, because we're recording this a few weeks away from airing, they've shown the Tenta one, John Tenta one, and the Bagwell one. The Tenta one, I haven't seen either one of them, but a lot of people were telling me to watch the Bagwell one because they are getting a good kick out of it. So
they show his mom shaving his bag.
We did say a couple weeks back we weren't sure if we were going to cover all of them because some of them just didn't interest us. But we are looking forward to discussing them, and we will see which ones it'll be. We're not sure right now. I do want to talk about the Bagwell one once I watch it and you watch it. The John Tenta one, I don't see what's a dark side of that. Like, he was a good man, like, from all accounts that I'm aware of. So that one is really weird to me. But I definitely want to talk about the Bagwell one. I definitely will want to talk about the Chris Adams one. So there's some that are out there that I'm like, yeah, I want to see what the hell they say. So we'll definitely discuss those on Patreon coming up at some point. Maybe we'll combine a couple. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. I've kind of not fallen out with Dark Side of the Ring, but there's some things that happened last season that had just rubbed me the wrong way with some of the.
I got it. Okay.
It didn't offend me. I'm just like, why are you blatantly lying? The Adrian Adonis one is just weird. The Adrian Adonis one is I keep repeating it. The Adrian Adonis one is ridiculous. You have police reports and you have eyewitnesses who are on record telling you what happened, and you speculate and present absolute bullshit to us. Okay. That's what pissed me off about that.
I understand.
I know. I ain't got to get all swole up in the chest, right?
Settle down.
But you'll be able to hear that stuff. tinyurl.com/Patreon, BTT. We've done many of the dark sides in the past that are on Patreon as well. tinyurl.com/Patreon, BTT. Matter of fact, I think we did all of last season's there. So that's available. Tales from the Territories, all that stuff. 400 plus Patreon exclusive shows. tinyurl.com/Patreon, BTT. Doc, anything else before we get out of here this week?
I think we've done the damn thing, bro.
Yeah, I think we have too. So we will catch you all. Harper may or may not be here next week. It depends on what's going on. We got to check with him and check with the schedule. We also may have to shift things, so he may not be on next week so that he can be on the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view with us, review. So bear with us. Harper will be back, though, to discuss that. And Harper's going to have he might have an aneurysm when his head explodes at Halloween Havoc, and I'll leave it at that. Yeah. All right, Doc, we're going to get out of here. Why don't you do us a favor? Hit the tagline. Let's roll.
Book it, bitch.